All right, let's get to it. All right. So today's training, guys, spotting supply and demand levels. And I misspelled that. So spotting supply and demand levels, right? That's we look, everything we're doing is gonna be simplicity. We don't want to overcomplicate it, right? A lot of people they talks about trading and you see they have all these indicators and all this extra stuff. We want to focus on simplicity on the chart, right? Want to make it easy for everyone. It's just been a busy day for me, so bear with me, everyone, right? But let's get started. So before we actually look at the charts, right? Let's look at this model over here that I drew up. Um, and this model is a representation of how the market move. Now, the market is never this perfect. It will never be this perfect, right? But the market will never be this perfect. But this is just a clean example, right? That you can use as a reference, right? So when we look at a market and its moves, market tend to move in waves. That's one, right? But when we look at a market and it's moving from level to level, these areas, these peak areas, are what we're talking about when we mention supply and demand, right? As I mentioned right here, supply and demand are the swing highs and swing lows areas, right? Areas that price touch multiple times, right? When you stretch this, if you stretch out, if you put a line there, um, a horizontal line, you see in the, from the past to the future, price may bounce off that area. For example, price bounced right here, right? It came back and bounced right here, right? And then it came back over here again and bounced right here. And then one more time right here, right? So these are, these areas are what we call a supply and demand area, okay? The swing highs and swing lows. Now, as price move, you want to start trading at these areas, right? So now we talk about what an uptrend was in the last class, right? The last training. Um, when you have an uptrend, you start having a series of lower lows, lower highs, right? So you have a lower low, right? I mean, sorry, take that back. Please forgive me with that one, guys. It's always a long day. For an uptrend, you have a series of higher highs and higher lows. Once again, it's higher highs and higher lows, right? So, right here we have a low, right? A higher low, right? A high, and then once again, a higher low, right? As you can see, this low right here, right? This low over here is higher than this low, right? Now this high is a higher high, right? Now, maybe I should make these blue as in the sense of price going up. Let's do that real quick. Okay. But on a downtrend, you start having a series of lower highs and lower lows. So this was the very high, right? I'm going to make that black, just as I made over here. That was a low, right? And as price go down, you start having lower highs, right? Make that right here. Lower highs and lower lows, right? So this was the high. This is a lower high. It's a low, right? Lower low, lower high, and lower low until it gets to the last point, which is back to this space, right?
Yeah.
So that is what um give me 1 second. Right. So that is what an uptrend is and a downtrend. So now while the price is trending up, right? And like I said, last training, we also talk about trend lines, right? So you connect the dots, the data points, you can see prices going uptrend. So the last training, right, we talking about trend lines and what an uptrend is and what a downtrend is. So now when we talk about also supply and demand, they all one and the same, guys. those pullbacks, right? Those higher highs, those are also supply and demands, right? But the swing high, not just any higher high within it, right? But the swing highs and the swing lows, those are your point of interest for supply and demand zones, right? Now, I want you guys to understand that this, this entire swing high, right, and swing low over here, right, back down here, could be just one move to an overall swing high, swing low trade, right? So that also I want you guys to keep in mind in that, and we'll be, we're gonna go into charts and it's gonna all make sense. I know it's probably a little confusing, right? But it's all gonna make sense. Now, another part of trading that we're talking about today. So the goal is to obviously the goal is to trade from supply and demand to supply and demand, and I'm going to explain that, right? We want to trade from this point to this point, right? And then once you get here, price from this point to this point. We're not looking to trade, from here all the way up there. Is it possible? Absolutely, absolutely. If you're but for someone that's new in the charts, you want to take it step by step. You want to make sure you remain profitable, right? The goal is to remain profitable. The goal is to make sure you always seeing profit, right? So, so while we're trading, right, you just want to focus on supply and demand to supply and demand, supply and demand to supply and demand. Now, and that brings us to the next part. What is their trading window area of focus, right? This area between each supply and demand is your area of focus. That's your trading window. That is what you're paying attention to, right? Yes, we're going to look at multi-time frame analysis, and we're going to look at overall analysis. For example, we need to see this is an uptrend, right? Knowing that this is an uptrend, right, it will help determine how we enter around these areas and how far, where do we, it'll help build our confidence on where price is going. Okay. So we'll definitely be talking about that on the charts, right? So let's get to the charts and have a better understanding, right? So this is, I know some of you guys like to take notes. If anyone want to take notes, please take a screenshot now, right? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. So let's look at this trade. This is AUSD, right? So if we look at this trade over here, let's go. Actually, let's do something real quick. Okay. If we look at this trade on AUSD, right, and realize this is gonna all look like this. If we look at this trade on AUSD, we could start to spot these swing highs and swing lows, right, on the daily time frame. So we could see that this was a swing high area. We're going to look at this as a low, right? And then we end up coming down here and having a very steep low, right? So on the daily, just want to show you guys how to spot these areas. And we have an overall swing high up here, right? So it's not the best example when it comes to the charts. As you can see, this was a much better example, right? We have these areas over here. Let me use this. So over here was a better example, right? We have the high, we have a low, a lower high, a lower low, lower high, right? And a lower low, right? Then a lower high, and then a lower low. And then once price got to a certain point, right, it start reversing. Now, keep this in mind, guys. If price does not beat, right, we talk about this on the trend as well. If price does not beat this high area, the previous lower high, it is not in the uptrend, right? We still remain in a downtrend. But the training right now is focused on supply and demand, right? So what we're gonna do is simply we're just gonna mark up, right, our swing lows and swing highs. So we look at this area, right, and we're just gonna drag this across as our swing high, right? We look at it. I already explained as well in last training why do we use a box opposed to a line, right? Because price is never perfect. It's never on a straight line, right? If we stretch this across, right, you could tend to see how price react at these levels. Hold on, let me kind of edit this. you can see how price react at these levels, right? Once again, so on the daily time frame, right? And what I want you guys to understand on the daily time frame, this right here is our trading window. This entire thing is a trading window on the daily time frame. As you can see, price went from supply and demand back to this supply and demand, right? It did a strange move over here, but eventually came back again and went back to supply and demand. And that is all we're doing, ladies and gentlemen. We're trading from supply and demand to supply and demand. That is our area of focus, right? That is our area of focus. So let's go now. Since this is our area of focus, right? Next thing to do is go on the smaller time frame. So let's go to the 4 hour, right? Now, we could obviously look back on the past, right? Because price does repeat itself, right? If if you guys want to write that down, price repeats itself, right? So, for example, let's use a horizontal line. If I look at this swing high area over here, right? If I go straight back across, we can see how price bounce off this level, right? And once again, this is why I don't use just a line, because price is never just perfect on one line, right? It's usually an area, okay? So if I have to stretch this across, 1 second, just stretch this down. If I have to stretch this across, right, you're gonna see how it looks better of how price reacts on this area, right? Right, you can see how price kind of reacts within this area over here, right? So that is once again, never a straight line. You just see how price react on that area. So that's another supply and demand area on the 4 hour. Once again, look at this, a swing high up here of that retest, and look how price in the future react off this area again, right? We can see that price, it came up, hit the structure, pulled down, it breaks it, hit the structure, then goes up, right? And then eventually when it goes up, look what it did. It ended up coming right back down, right? Come back right back down. So that is what I'm talking about. Okay, as a supply and demand. So this is how we start spotting these supply and demands, guys. Once again, it's these swing highs, swing lows, right? We started from the go back to the daily, right? The swing low, right? The swing high, right? This was also swing low, but we're not looking at this since price came back above this structure here, right? So swing low, swing high. This was our overall move, right? Then we went out to the 4 hour. And then when we went out to the 4 hour, we basically look for those swing highs, right? And swing lows. And as you can see, look how price react over these areas. Swing high, back to the supply, swing low, came up here, swing high, came right back to this structure right here. How price repeats itself, right? And as you can see how many times price touched this area, right? It got touched about twice over here, another time here, again, again, and again, right? Before it finally continue going up. Now, okay, right? So let's just focus on this area, for example, right? Let's look at this for an example. For example, the next thing to do, right? Because now you guys gonna understand that these areas are trading windows. From here to here is a trading window, right? When price had came back down, so that is a trading window. And from here to here is also a trading window, right? So let's focus on these areas. So that's once you understand how to draw up your supply and demand, the next thing, let's do the rest, right? So now we still on the 4 hour time frame. We can obviously see that, look at this area, a nice supply and demand, right? Let's change that back to blue. You can change these colors how you like to, fit better. So as you can see, look what happened here. Price went up, hit the structure, pulled down, came back, touched it on again. So touched it over here, touched it over here, went up, came back, touched again, came up, touched again multiple times over here until it finally went up and it finally broke through, retest again over here, came down, retest again over here, right? So as you can see, price been touching this area multiple times, right? So that right there, guys, is this area is your supply and demand, right? That's a supply and demand area. But this is a supply and demand area on the 4 hour time frame, right? right? This is a supply and demand on the 4-hour time frame, right? So if you guys could see, look, this is a swing high, swing low, swing high, swing low, swing high, till we finally broke, swing low, right? So once we spot all the supply and demand area, we now just have to focus on where's our trading window, right? So this is a trading window here, right? And you could drag this across, and these are a trading window, right? So I'm just going to color code it so we're not confusing it with our supply and demand, right? That's our trading window. And then this up here is our trading window. Now, I want you guys to understand too, we also spot another supply and demand area. So let me just change different colors, right? Right, that's so look again, right here on the 4-hour, how price is bouncing off this area, touch here, touch here, touch here. This is also a supply and demand area, right? Look, our price kept touching this area. Look, it got touched right there, over here, here, here. It kept bouncing off this area, kept bouncing off this area, right? That's another supply and demand zone. So these are, you know, technically these are areas we want to focus on, right? When we're trading. Now, and let's just review like what my draw up over here. As I mentioned, supply and demand are the swing highs and the swing low areas that price are swing low areas that price touch multiple times. As we can see how price just play off these zones multiple times, right? Those are the, you know, those are the areas you want to trade. Those are the areas that banks trade at, right? And you want to start catching those explosive moves. The goal is to trade from the supply and demand area, from supply and demand to supply and demand, right? You want to trade from here. You want to trade, for example, right? Price came up here and you came back in the supply and demand zone. You want to trade it from here to here, right? If you try to hold the trade all the way down here, as you can see how price end up pulling back on you, right? So you want to trade from supply and demand to supply and demand. You want to trade from supply and demand back to supply and demand, right? And then you want to trade from supply and demand to here. Now look what happened. Once you trade it to here, you make a profit. You're in and out the chart, right? Look what happened over here. Price ended up breaking it, retest, right? Giving you a nice confirmation to take it now from this area back to here. And you see how price played out, right? That is how we're looking to trade, guys, from these areas. Okay. Now, some of you guys may wonder, what's the difference between supply and demand and support and resistance? They're pretty much one and the same, right? Just supply and demand areas tend to have high liquidity, right? So those are areas that banks trade at. So because those are areas that banks trade at, those are areas that's also there's a lot of manipulation, right? Another training, I will actually go over the different type of manipulation that banks do, right? And you can profit off and trade exactly with the banks, right? Okay. So these are zones that we're trading from. So once we figure that out, we go in 1 minute, 1 hour time frame, right? We go into 1 hour time frame. Once you have your supply and demand zones draw up and you know where you're trying to trade from, right? The next thing is to go into the 1 hour. So we're into 1 hour, right? Let's focus on here, right? Come on a second. So this is our trading window, right? From this zone to this zone, supply and demand from here to here. Now, let's say price was here, right? Price was currently here. You couldn't see this part of the charts, right? It didn't, it was, you know, you wasn't able to see this part of the charts or whatever. The price is just currently up here, right? So now your goal, understanding you trade from supply and demand to supply and demand, right? You're trading from here now to here, right? Your goal is simply to just figure out how to enter this chart, right? And that is how we actually trade, guys, right? Simple as that. Like I said, I don't want to go into too much with this training. I want to make it simple for you guys, but that is how we trade, right? Just from supply and demand to supply and demand. If you know where the market is going, trading become easy, right? We don't care about all that other noise and all that stuff. Simplicity on the chart. Simplicity on the chart. And look what I mean by this, right? So we have a nice break of structure here, price break of nice break of structure, and we have a nice little retest, right? And I'm gonna give another training guides about how to enter off a break and retest, right? Confirmations based on the market structure and all that stuff, candlestick patterns. So you have a nice little break and retest. You look to enter this trade over here, right? And then you just take it down to the next level. Now, price going down there, right? You enter, say right here, for example. I'm just randomly putting it there, right? That'll be a nice area of entry, actually. Why would that be a nice area of entry? You may ask. We start having, let's use this. We start having, look, this is the swing high. Then we have a lower high, right? We have a low, and that lower low got broken, right? Right over there, nice area of entry, right? So anyways, stop loss can be right at that high. You're looking about 20 pips, 19 pips, small risk, right? And right, if you decide to take it down back to this low, because this is also now considered supply and demand, guys, on the 1 hour time frame, right? That's a swing low on the 1 hour time frame, right? Remember, these, you got to keep in mind, this blue area between here and here are the supply and demand on the 4 hours, right? So between here and this low is a supply and demand, right, on the 1 hour time frame, correct? Because this is now our trading window. We're focusing on this yellow area, right? So this is now our supply and demand, different colors, supply and demand on the 1 hour time frame, right? So look what you could have did. And look how price play off these areas, guys. So once again, you would have traded this, right? You would have made, this would have been a 100 pip trade, right? This would have been a 1-to-5 ratio, right? A beautiful risk to reward. So if you risk $19 on this trade, $20 on this trade, right? You're risking $20 to make 100, right? You're risking 200 to make 1,000, right? That's a good trade, 1-to-1. Now, understanding where price is going, you're going to start, within that, you're going to have these support and resistance, right? These are these lows, these highs and lows. These are support and resistance, right? Where you can even take more entries on to take this trade down, right? Because you know where prices want to go. Price is looking to go from where? This is the supply and demand to the 1 hour supply and demand. That's where you're looking to trade at, right? Price is going from here to here, correct? Now, overall, we know that price want to go from this 4 hour supply and demand to this other supply and demand, right? But as just a quick intraday trading, right? You could have took this trade right here, right? And made 100 pips. Now, now look what happened. Price came back up to this structure as well. Again, what I want you guys to understand, when price came back, let me just clear this up a little bit. Clear this up a little bit. I don't want to confuse it, guys. So we understand, right? We understand this is our supply and demand. So we could have stretched this across. That's one. We could literally stretch that across, right? Just stretch it across. As you can see how price actually play off this area. It's not just a line, it's an area of interest, right? Our price play around that area before it decides to continue to go down. Now, price end up pulling back to the supply and demand. But what you could start, what to help strengthen your trade, we know that we're in a downtrend, right? Because we have a series of higher highs, higher lows. And over here, we start having this is the high, and then we have a higher low, right? You can literally see that price is going downwards, right? It's not at an equal level, okay? So once you spot a reversal, that's another area. Once again, supply and demand, right back to supply and demand, right? Now, your next move, right? There's always another move, guys. I know sometimes you guys may want to hold this entire trade. Can you do that? Absolutely, right? You can absolutely do that, but you don't have to, right? Because it's always another move. Never have this fear of missing out money. There's always another move, right? You miss one move, you're gonna catch a 20 more, right? There's always another move. Don't have a fear of missing out on money, okay? Now, look what happened. Now, so since that's a supply and demand, right? The next goal is to look for, sorry guys, next area is from here, supply and demand to here, right? So this was a trading window in the 1 hour, right? And now this is our new trading window to focus on. Once price broke this area, this is our new trading window, right? We can make that black color, darker, lighter, right? This becomes now our new trading window from this supply and demand, right? This red box here, right? Make it a little darker to down back to this area, right? Even though we know from a 4-hour standpoint, we want to trade from here to here. This is where this is now, as mentioned, these are our trading windows, right? Trading windows is between supply and demand to supply and demand, right? And you could take it from the 1 hour, from down to the 1 hour, 4 hour, wherever. Those are our trading windows, right? Now look what we have here, just the same thing we have over here. We have price, came down and broke structure, came back up and retest structure. And once it came back down up and retest structure, price literally tanked down to the new supply and demand, right? And if you want to, if you want to look when along this position, nice area of, or sorry, short this position. Short means sell, right? You're looking for price to go down. Long mean buy. You're looking for price to increase, right? So if you short this position, as you can see, you could have took this even back down to this low, guys, right here. Let's look at it. What's a nice entry area? So, yeah, this would have been a nice entry right here. I would have gotten off that candle right there. Okay. So anyways, really it's just that break up here I would have got it. Anyways, okay, so you could have took price where again, guys, you could have took price right at the structure. Because why? Swing low, right? Make it become a habit, guys, right? Look at price reject at this area, came here and then bounce up. Then they end up breaking it, but just look how price play off that area, right? So this is an area, if you wanted to hold it here, which is okay, that's where I probably would have held it myself, right? But this is an area where I would have scaled off profit and then move stop loss to break even or in profit to minimize my my risk and protect my account, right? So once again, this trade would have profited you, right? You're risking 20 pips. This trade would have profited you 70 pips, right? This is a 1 to 3. This is a 1 to 3 trade, right? So 21. So this sort of 1 to 3.3 trade, right? So once again, you're risking $20 to make $70, right? You're risking 20 to make 700. That's good risk to reward right there, guys, right? That's good profit, right? And look, this is something I want you guys to understand too. When the analysis is correct and it's you follow the rules, right? The banks, there's gonna be a lot of nonsense. There's gonna be a lot of noise. Price gonna do a lot of noise, but eventually this is where you want to go. This is why you want to entry over here. You don't want to entry down here, right? So I know a lot of people will look for an entry down at these areas, right? Let's just delete that for a second, right? If someone tried to look for an entry down here, not saying they couldn't get an entry, but look how price would have just went back against them. They would have lost money because it's kind of too late. You want to trade at these supply and demand areas, right? Because it doesn't matter what price is doing, nonsense is doing. Eventually, the point is that you want to go there, right? And once you enter over here, price come back an entry or whatever you break, your stop loss is there. You could have won price dropped 50 pips. That's wonderful profit. Could have scaled off some partials and then move your break even, right? Right. Move your stop loss right to entry or in profit as a break even, right? So if price pull back, you exit a trade as a win and not lose anything. The goal is to always protect your account, okay? Always protect your account. But nonetheless, this is how we look at our trading zones, right? Right. So this would be a trading zone right here. So no trading zone. And your next trading zone, right, would be from this supply and demand to here. And look, overall, we just trying to take it all the way down here. Could you have swing all of this? Absolutely, guys. You could do that, right? But if you're not, if you're an intraday trader or day trader, you're not looking to hold a trade days, right? This is a quick, understanding the market. There's multiple entries, guys, multiple entries. So this is another area of interest where you could have looked to take this trade, right? Excuse green. And once again, with this one, right, price didn't really retest the structure, right? It didn't retest that much, right? Price just broke, and it just went straight to that supply and demand. And look how it played off. It hit that area, went right back up, right? Supply and demands are typical, reversal points, guys. This is why we trade at these areas. We catch these moves, okay? We could catch these moves all day long, right? So that's a quick breakdown of supply and demand and our trading window. I hope you guys learned something, right? Today we reviewed supply and demand, right, which are the swing highs and swing low areas that price touch multiple times. The goal is to trade from supply and demand to supply and demand. We trade, understanding our trading window / area focus, right? This is our area of focus, these areas, and multi-time frame analysis, right? So we started, as you guys can see, we started from the daily time frame, right? Understanding our overall swing highs, swing lows, because look what's happening right here, guys. Supply and demand to supply and demand, and supply and demand to supply and demand on the daily, right? So we just understanding how price is moving, and look, we could have called multiple entries coming back down here, right? And we could either expect price to now hit this area and go back up, right, or continue to go down. We just got to see how it plays off over here. But that's really what we focus on, guys. So we started from the daily, right, which is these blue areas. Then we went to the 4-hour, right? Let's switch that color. The 4-hour areas, let's make that black, right? So we're not confused, right? And then we went to this was also 4-hour area, right? So 4-hour area, right? So these are the 4-hour areas of supply and demand, right? These purple is no, sorry, this wasn't a 4-hour. This was not a 4-hour. This was also a daily, right? But these black areas are the 4 hours, right? 4-hour zones because within the dailies, right, there's a 4-hour supply and demand, right? And then we go to the 1 hour, and the 1 hour supply and demand would be these red areas right here, right? Supply and demand at these red areas. Okay. And then once you honestly, right, there's supply and demand on the 15-minute. Hold on a second, I'm plugging my charger. Sorry about that. Now there's supply and demand on the 15-minute as well. Not really much, I don't really focus too much on them because I'm a mix of intraday and day trading, right? Swing trader, intraday and swing trader. If you're a just pure intraday, you're going for 20 pips TP, right? Yes, you can do, bring it down to even a 15-minute time frame. And I get my entries off the 5-minute, 15-minute, 1 minute, but I look at my target goals off the hour, right? If you want to get you're just in for 20 pips, 10 pips, right? You could look at those supply and demands on the 5-minute, right? Trade off the 1 minute, the 15-minute, but it's the same concept, guys. It's the same exact concept, right? If you look at the model here, over here, look how the structure played out over here, right? We have you can just look at we have these highs, lows, highs, lows, highs, right? And it's the same concept, highs, lows, right? Lower lows and stuff. Right. So that, and we're just trading the supply and demand area within these, with this model, within these supply and demand, there's going to be little supply and demand areas within that, right? So that is what I was trying to explain. Right, this could be the daily supply and demand, but within there, there's 4 hours, 1 hour, and you could just trade on those, right? Right. Okay. I hope that makes sense. Hope you guys learned something today. If you want to take any screenshot, go ahead. It's going to 4 hour. If you want to take any screenshot, go ahead. Feel free to do so. The charts to have a better understanding of it. Right. Feel free to do so. If you want to take a picture of this, feel free to do so. We have this information here. I feel free to do so. So once again, thank you guys for coming on. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask. You see the chat. Nice. A screenshot. Okay, no problem. Okay. Yeah, I know. All right. So thank you guys for coming on, and have a wonderful day. All right. Thank you. Bye.